Billy Wagner was a Met for 3+ years, 2006 to 2009, and one of the greatest closers in the history of the game. Probably should be in the Hall of Fame. Hopefully someday will be in the Hall of Fame. 422 saves. Sixth most in Major League history. 101 of those saves came as a Met. He had a 2.37 ERA during his tenure with the Mets. And he's one of the most delightful people that we ever get to talk to, and we are so happy to have Billy Wagner on the phone with us. Billy, it's Gary, Keith, and Ron at Citi Field. How are you doing these days?
I'm great. Just coaching high school baseball and chasing kids.
You're not still growing llamas or alpacas, are you?
You know what? When they told me that I was going to be put on SNY, I knew that Keith was going to ask me about alpacas. I mean, it was. I told all my kids, I said, gather around because it's the only time you're going to hear the word alpacas in this house.
Billy, what are your fondest memories about your days as a Met?
I tell you, there's a lot of fond memories. I don't know if I've ever pitched in a setting where your A game had to be better than your A game because the guy across town was the best of the best. So every game was like a rock, like being a rock star. I mean, you had to come out ready to roll, and I mean, you had to be accountable. You couldn't settle for just okay. I mean, there were instances where, and it takes time to get used to New York. I mean, you go from Houston to Philadelphia to New York. It takes some time. So, after having Glavin and David and guys around me that kind of showed me, how this works. I mean, I just really enjoyed it. I enjoyed our family going down to Broadway shows and just, taking in some of the nightlife. I enjoyed it all. The team, the playoff runs, the expectations, it was all great.
Billy, it's Ronnie. I was just wondering, so why was it so different? Like, did you have preconceived notions of what it was going to be like to be living in New York and playing, and were some of them true and some others not true?
Well, being from a hometown in Tannersville, Virginia, where there's about 100 people, and there was a difference. I mean, what you saw on TV was not what was always real, and so going to New York, the expectations was, the hustle and bustle, and you just had to be so much more, and and so when I got there, I made my debut in '95 in New York against Rico Brogna when I was with the Astros, and so I was overwhelmed. I don't even remember the whole setting; it was so overwhelming. And then to come back and then pitch for New York, it was overwhelming. And I mean, with Delgado and Beltran and the Glavins and Pedros and stuff like that, you put yourself in a really, magnifying glass, and it takes some time understanding that, hey, I still got to be me, I still got to do my job, I still got to show up every day, and so, it is different. It is different showing up in New York rather than showing up to San Diego or, Houston or some of these places where the media is not as much exposure, but not nowadays. I mean, social media it doesn't matter where you play. Everybody knows what you're doing.
Bill, it's Keith. Tell me, do you miss the competition? Do you miss being out there, or are you kind of okay with it and happy in retirement?
Well, I have 3 kids, 3 boys who play baseball. So I lived through competition. Then I have probably my most competitive is my daughter that we lived through. So I don't miss the competition because my kids are in the games, and I'm also coaching, and so I don't sit back and go, man, I wish I could still do this. I wish I could do that. When I left, I did it on my terms. I'm pretty sure I could have pitched another year or two, but knowing that I was going to have the opportunity to be with my kids and have to play catch and throw BP every day, and I don't miss it. I miss the guys. I think every veteran that's been in this misses the camaraderie in the clubhouse and talking about the game and things like that. But as far as just competition, no, I'm totally good with sitting back here and watching these young guys do their thing.
Billy, your first year with the Mets was 2006. It also happened to be our first year on SNY, and we've always talked among ourselves that was the most talented team that the Mets have had since we've been doing this. The fact that you guys fell a little bit short that year, has that gnawed at you, or do you think that you're you've kind of gotten over the fact that you guys fell short of your goal?
No, I don't think anybody that is a competitor gets over being that close. And I mean, me, myself, never winning a championship. I mean, yes, and I stunk. I stunk. The last, I think the series against St. Louis, I was not very good. I was, I just, whatever I did, wasn't very good. It was a very tightrope when I was wearing, and, it is tough to swallow knowing that we were that close. And I mean, I think, if there's anything that stands out in New York or my career, it's probably, that series, because it's just magnified. And, as well as you want to do in that setting, sometimes it just doesn't work out. But I didn't help things. And I mean, in any other times, as well as I do, that the closer would have been in, probably before Aaron would have been in that last game to close that out. And, it was obvious that at that point, Willie didn't have the confidence in me to go out there and finish that game. And, that would eat at anybody.
Well, to speak to your greatness, Billy, in a game where 93 guys average 96 miles an hour in their fastball, you still would be the hardest thrower. But I wanted to have your take on the sticky substances that are in the game or trying to be taken out of the game.
Well, I know that it's very difficult to talk about. I mean, and it's very personal as a pitcher. But I look at it in a couple ways. I mean, we all came up with that being part of our repertoire. And, whether anybody admitted it or not, I used it, and it was because I needed to be able to hold on the ball in the ninth inning when it's not rubbed up. And I tell you right now, there's quite a few left-handed hitters very happy that I did have that. And, I mean, I don't know how somebody wants to stand in there with Chapman and him not have anything. I mean, maybe they're just that much better these days, but it's tough when you go out there. And I mean, the hitters, the players are great. They're fantastic and awesome, but they've got all the armor. They've got the grips, the batting gloves, the protection, and you're out there throwing in a rectangle. It's very difficult to go out there and be pinpoint at times. And you know what? It is a confidence thing, and it helped me to feel a little bit more confident going out there and putting the ball where I needed it to go. And, with saying that, Mark McGwire, Barry Bonds, none of them ever complained when they took me deep that I might be using pine tar. I think it's too far. I think it's overblown, and I think the person who started complaining about it was having a tough year and wanted to bring up somebody else's fortune. I mean, nobody complains about that stuff when they're going well. It's just I know that people are making more out of this than they need to, and checking Scherzer 3 times during the game and making this big stink. I think it's just overblown. I think if you want to really make it fair, make the hitters go out there with no pine tar, no batting gloves, no stick 'em, no nothing, and go up there. Let's go even Steven. Let's see how that works.
Billy, it has been a pleasure talking to you. You've always been one of the most thoughtful people about this game, and I always cherish our conversations. Thanks so much for joining us.
And I hope we all get to call you a Hall of Famer someday, because you belong there, Billy.
Yep.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
All right, Billy. Good to talk with you.
He's one of a kind. He really is, and he always has been.
And what's great about him is that, a lot of people are wishy-washy, or he's got an opinion, and you got to appreciate it. I always loved it. you know.
He was never afraid to express himself at a time when a lot of people had trouble expressing themselves.